Cool. And that is everyone. That I hope. Cool. So my name is Liam. I'll be your chair for what is the last round of the in-rounds of a standard debate unions online open 2020. I prefer the gender pronouns here, they, but like there are a number of judges on this panel. They might use disparate pronouns. I would refer to the panel as a whole in gender neutral language to respect those pronouns. Cool. Introducing my judges. Just introduce yourselves.
Yeah, I'm Aniket. My preferred gender pronouns are he or they.
Hi, my name is Mohamad Yahia. No preferred pronoun.
Is that everyone? Cool. So opening government. Who's speaking first and gender pronouns?
Yeah, my name is Olivia. I'm speaking first. She, please.
Perfect. And who's speaking second?
Maciej, he or they, please.
Opening opposition.
First, Nursat, he, please.
And speaking second?
Speaking second, Madi, pronounce just DLO, it's fine.
Cool, perfect.
In closing government, first speaker is Nurtas, no gender preferences.
Perfect. And GovWhip?
Second speaker is Yahia, no gender preference.
Perfect, perfect. Closing opposition.
Husains speaking first. He, him.
Perfect. And OpWhip?
Boy speaking second.
Could you turn your mic up a little bit? That was a little...
No preferences.
Got you. Thank you. Perfect. I am not the person you should direct questions to if you have any questions about this motion, and it would be harmful for me to answer any of them. But so because we've done the standing orders and rules of debating don't change between rounds, OG, you can now do the thing.
Okay, so just one more second. Okay, so I will tell you just three things. First of all, how does the research funding look like, and what is directly connected with this kind of actions? Secondly, how does the science in the USA look like, and what would this cooperation have done to it? And the last thing, what is in our opinion the most important thing in this debate, and how does it look in the context of research funding from China? But first of all, about the policy model, we assume that it is the government who forbid the research funding from China to US universities. And that's simple. The research funding is always a transaction between two actors. So when we're talking about China giving money to US universities, we are also talking about the universities like being in a position that they have to give anything from their side. For example, like the basic thing that they must give is kind of acceptation, tolerance, because if you take money from someone, you can't say that they're bad, you can't criticize them a lot, and it is kind of your partner. So it is the assumption here that you are like you cooperate, you kind of like each other, because this is a thing that it is connected to both of you and your interests. So this is the first thing. The second thing is about the science in the United States at the universities. How does it look like? We are talking about a specific country which is quite rich and quite interested in developing universities and science in their country. In fact, this is very important for the USA itself and the universities to develop science, to support scientists and universities, and they have a lot of money, they invest the money, and they just try to do their best for the main universities to support them financially as well. And here we have both the government that can give the money to fund the research, or private actors like Google or Amazon, who also are seriously interested in developing high technology and research, because they are probably going to use it. They have a lot of money, and they usually are somehow connected to the universities, because they know that this is the place where the people who know how to do it, how to do the research, this is the place where they are. So it's good to support them financially also, and to cooperate with them. Also, these are people at the universities who may possibly in the future work with for Google or Amazon. So this cooperation will probably go well as well. So probably, if we are talking about any universities from United States that lack money for research and are interested in cooperation, financial cooperation with China, we are probably talking about universities that are not so well developed, that really are kind of desperate to get this money, and possibly can do a lot of things like resign from their some kind of ideas or previous like assumptions to get this money. And I'll be honest, we can give up on these kind of universities. We think that the most important are probably already sponsored, and there are some things that bad things that may happen if we not ban this cooperation. So now, the third thing, what is the most important thing in this debate? We think it is the quality of work of a university, because a university is a place when the future the group of the most important, well-educated and influential people grow up. They develop themselves, their worldview, preferences, ideas, abilities directly at the university. So the university is a place which it is very important that all the ideas that are spread there, all the methodology that it is also teach there, it is very important that we have this quality at the highest level. And the mechanisms look like, if you have these people from universities well educated, in the future these people from USA best universities, they will probably become politicians and businessmen, and they will be people who definitely should be well educated and should have a proper worldview, because it will impact probably not on, but of course it will influence on them as single beings, but also on other groups and important decisions and so on. So what happens when we have the research funding? Well, we find ourselves in a situation when a university, a crucial actor in this debate, indirectly says that China is okay. What they're doing, it's another culture. We shouldn't criticize it so a lot. Why? Because we are kind of partners. If you give money from someone, you can't openly say that you don't support China and their actions, their disrespect for human rights, their disrespect for civil rights, and generally the way they treat their people, and they sometimes use it for their own purpose, and so on and so on. And USA is a country which is just based on respect for human and civil rights, for freedom, and based on openness to each other and to the world. And if we let universities not criticize China, we can find ourselves in a position when this future politicians or businessmen or any other person think that, okay, China is okay, that's it. Thank you.
Awesome. I think the Prime Minister's report was an excellent speech, and I call upon the Leader of Opposition to open the case for side opposition. Hear, hear.
Am I audible? Just give me a second to set my timer. Dear Chair, it's important to notice that in this debate, it's important for opening government to show the legitimacy of the new laws and to this debate. Firstly, we should understand that universities have full rights, as it is autonomous bodies that have a right to their autonomy, that they have ownership. It's an individual part, because the most universities in America is individual. It's a university of individuals like Harvard, Stanford, and etc. that have all rights to use their money, to get money from other countries, and according to the autonomy of a body, US cannot interact in their things and in their fundings and etc. because it's like you have your car that you bought, and you can do with this car what you want. You can give it, for example, for your friends and etc. You can broke it, and this analogy works as well, because this car is like the individual's cars, like Harvard is the individual, the university of individual person, and this person can do whatever they want. But moreover, we should understand that China is one of the biggest technological and innovative country. They're interested in technology, in technological progress, as it is one of the biggest part of their economy. Like they have Huawei, Me, and other biggest companies that are interested in innovations. That are interested in innovations and interested in research, and etc. And they understand that US is in some areas developed better in China, because they have a long history of the innovations. They have a long history universities that have a good reputation in global market, not in like most of the university of China that have a good professors, and they understand that funding to this universities can help in the development of their technologies, can help in the innovation. When the opening government says that mostly China give the money for not crucial universities, it's not true, because mostly China give the fundings for biggest universities because they have a lot of money, and they understand that these universities can give them innovation, that can give the funding for science and progress. But even if we are talking about small universities, it's also good, because these small universities will have a chance to progress because we have some kind of monopoly of universities and higher education in America, and it's hard for small universities to develop and etc. because they do not have funding. And even if China will fund them, we will have some kind of competition that will develop more researchers, that will increase the level of the product and etc. Why funding is very helpful for science progress? It's important to take funding from China, because firstly, China have a lot of money, as China is one of the biggest economy that allows to fund a lot of money. And it really affects the researchers, because now, if we will consider the data, firstly, we have, for example, $1 million that was funded, for example, by Apple. Now we have now more $1 million from China that will funded for more important, will be funded for important things, because China will not just fund for nothing. They will fund, for example, for anti-coronavirus vaccines and etc. That is really important for their economy, that like development of innovation and researches. And it will this money, that a lot of money will develop the efficiency and the better researchers, and that these researchers can become more faster because we have more money that can be spent on, for example, better professionals, and spent on better equipment, infrastructure, that will be increase the level, that will increase the time of development of, for example, vaccine. Why it's better? Why it's important? Firstly, we need efficiency, faster and better researches, because it affects the lives of the people, of the millions of people in our Earth. Firstly, if we consider, for example, the researches in medicine, like researches on a very important health project and etc. It affects the millions of people, like creating the vaccine, anti-coronavirus vaccine that can affect the millions of people. These researches are funded by China, because China is also interested, for example, in coronavirus. And coronavirus is not an only example. We're talking about the cancer, we're talking about other, even the technologies that affect the lives of the people, that, for example, phone and internet and other things like 5G, that is important for people in their daily life. If government side will talk, and because of this, we believe that it's important, because in the impact, in the delta, we should consider that millions of people will get more efficient progress, more efficient products. They will get from the competition. They will get from the better researchers, that more people lives will be saved because of the, for example, innovational progress in medicine, in other stuff, like more better internet, for example, in India, because of the cheap internet, in other part of the country like Africa and etc. If government side will talk about the misconduct from China, it's important to notice that universities are interested in good reputation, that they will get the credibility and the students, and any scandals can lead to the destruction of this image. We can see the universities are interested in transparency in that way, because they're interested in the funding from the other countries like Britain, that also fund a lot of money, and from the big companies like Apple, that are also interested in the image, and that can fund, for example, to the other universities if there will be bad image from, for example, in the MIT and other universities. Because of this, universities are not interested to make some kind of propaganda of the Chinese ideology, because we should understand that in America there are some kind of demonization of this communistic ideology, and because of this it can affect the image of the university that is supporting, for example, scandalistic Chinese ideology, communistic ideology. Mostly universities will not be interested in spreading ideology, but only the benefit in the innovation and give a better life and better innovation for China. And why scandals can appear, students in a liberal society also can have some kind of freedom of speech, that they talk about these scandals, and university understand it, and because of this they will not do such kind of ideology spreading. But moreover, if government side will talk about the rise of the economy of the China, we should understand that it's good, because we have 2 billion of people living in China, and their lives will become better. And because of this, we believe that that it's good, and we are proud to oppose.
I thank the Leader of Opposition for what was an excellent speech, and I'll call on the Deputy Prime Minister to continue the case for side government. Here.
Am I audible? Awesome. Okay, China. 3, 2, 1. Magically, in opening opposition's words, actually China is altruistic. China is so good for everybody in the world that they will actually, cure cancer, and they will do everything that's absolutely perfect, butterflies and all this shit. It's absolutely not true. Usually China is pragmatic. You can see that in Africa, you can see that in actually One Belt One Road initiative, and usually they care about their own interests. So they will not care about any kind of research development. That is actually what opening opposition is trying to talk about. They tried to hide coronavirus in the first place. Only reason why currently they're spending any money for any kind of research on that specific measure is because it had the PR in the first place, when people had that because of them, the pandemic has started. They would not care about anything that doesn't directly harm their specific PR or their specific way of thinking. But please panel note, our argument is still absolutely untouched. Even if everything that opening opposition has been shown in the first place, we believe that still quality of universities is something that's going to drastically lower, and we believe that because of that, actually many people will lose. But what I'm going to do in this specific speech is a little bit of rebuttal in a second. Later, what is direct research and how China is going to spend this money. But right now, just to be absolutely sure that we have legitimacy. When you are directly harmed by an action and directly harmed by any kind of behavior, you can ban and forbid this thing, right? We believe that when the US is actually directly harmed by China's research in their own universities, it can do. If it can do the forbidding, it can do the ban in the first place. Second thing, when universities are getting the quality a little bit lower, even a little bit lower by this specific actions and behavior, US is their own interest, right? Because it's their own university and their level of students, etc. Their reputation as well, because they are known for the educational system, right? Because of that, they can also forbid that. Here we go with the legitimacy, right? Let's look at opening opposition just to be absolutely sure in case of what they're talking. China is dominant in the case of research. I'm really sorry, but LOL, absolutely not, because the status quo looks simply, if they are so dominant in research, they do not need any kind of research funding for the US in the first place. There is some reason for that. Why? Because usually US is way better in this specific system. US knows shit, because there were any kind of high-tech development was produced mostly in the US for past 50 years. India is just coming in case of high-tech in the first place, right? Any kind of research was actually dominated by the US for last 30 or 40 years, right? Right now, China is not so dominant. It's really fragile in case of research because they're just starting. They're mostly focusing on just their development in case of any kind of economic progress, but they were not focusing about any kind of high-tech research, technology, AI, or no, 5G, or everything that they're actually caring about. So let's look at the status quo, how it looks like. We are talking about $1 billion to Harvard University from China. We are talking about 30, I believe that $230 million to Yale. It's huge amount of money. And I'm really sorry, but none country is altruistic. They care about own interest because they need to later explain why they spend those specific money. So research is going to be directed, right? They will need specific direction. They will need specific research in the first place. What does it mean? Probably it's going to be spent on high tech. Probably it's going to be spent on 5G. Probably it's going to be spent on military equipment on some kind. Probably it's going to be spent on anything that actually cares, that the China cares in the first place, they cannot obtain by their own universities and own research, right? So usually it's going to be not to benefit their own people. It's still a non-democratic state, and it's still that state that doesn't need to care about social perspective and social acceptance in the first place. We could see that in Tiananmen, we could see that in Hong Kong, they didn't care a lot because they actually can also just throw it under the carpet and just don't care about any kind of uprisings in the first place, but they will probably spend that to dominate even more on the international level, right? We are talking about better possible domination in Africa, better domination in One Belt, One Road initiative. We are talking about better domination on seas to actually control any kind of global markets and global trade association. What does it mean? It means that probably we are going to have non-democratic country actually getting stronger international because of universities of US, right? Because of that, they will be able to dominate it. And we can see already that those country doesn't care about human rights. You could see that in Uyghurs killing, right? You can see that in any kind of treatment. For example, in Hong Kong, they don't care about democratic values. Okay, so there's a huge possibility that many countries are going to be absolutely ignored when they are not strong enough in the first place. It will be harder for you to trade. It will be harder to you to have any kind of voice in the first place. Even if US is not perfect, still it's a country that needs to care about democratic values because people of United States care about that a lot. They believe that their democracy is something pretty important. So because of that, probably you're going to be listening about human rights and you're probably going to listen about democracy. And we believe it's something pretty crucial. Until I continue with weighing, please, CEO, question.
So, how is it going to affect Chinese students? Like, how do you think this motion could affect Chinese students studying in US?
It's going to affect it really, really simply. We are talking about research fundings. We're not talking about any kind of, I don't know, fundings for people to actually go and study in the US in the first place. We believe that it can absolutely stay, but we still believe it's a minor case in the specific debate, and it absolutely doesn't matter. The thing is that we need to understand one simple thing, dear panel. The thing is, we have two arguments and two specific metrics. The level of human rights, democracy, and the possibility of who is specifically dominant in the first place. Because of that, we believe it's legitimate for the US to forbid US universities in the first place, because we believe that, yeah, probably less strong China, mostly in their RID system, is going to be something that will be way, way better in the first place, because we believe it is better for democratic country to have any kind of, I don't know, phone industries or internet industries in the first place, because this is exactly the place when we mostly care about our freedom in the first place, and we're mostly afraid that we can actually be, checked in the first place, we can be dominated in the first place, and that's the thing. We believe because of that, probably China is going to be way weaker when it will be impossible to actually use US universities in the first place for the knowledge. That's the first metric we are showing to you, and we're winning grandly on that one, right? The second thing, even if that is not true, and really China is altruistic, we believe still it's a non-democratic country, and still we have absolute legitimacy to criticize it and probably better this country further more, right? And we are creating leaders in the universities, and we are affecting them strongly, but what we are teaching them, because the last moment they can actually learn in the first place. Because of that, probably the possibility for them to be criticized is going to be way, way lower. And because of that, those leaders will not care about what China is doing, because they will think about, getting money, right, etc. And because of that, we are winning also on the metric of quality of universities, and why future leaders will not understand future international relations as strongly as on our side of the house. Because of all those reasons, I'm really proud to propose.
Also, I thank the Deputy Prime Minister for what was an excellent speech, and now call on the Deputy Leader of Opposition to close out top half, please.
Am I audible? Okay, a few seconds. Okay, let's start. I'm going to show the actor analysis, what universities do and do not do. We believe that the, well, before that, please ask yourself when you open the Twitter and listen to universities to know the opinion about the happening situations in the world. For example, I do. For example, I open the Twitter, read the comments of the Donald Trump. I read the comments of maybe other famous stars, and etc. etc. I do not listen to universities. They are not even considered to be the opinion leaders. They are not considered to be opinion or another some kind of state who responsible to show some criticized or non-criticized opinions. Now I'm going to analyze what universities do and do not do. We're absolutely sure that universities more probably are non-political and have interests in China, and so on. Few reasons. First, in status quo, universities getting the financial support from all of the countries, even the Britain, even the Russia, even the China, even the different Middle Asian countries, and so on. That is to say, that is China is also just one of the countries that are getting support. And what is the interest of, for example, helping? Not criticizing in China and no Russian if, for example, they will have conflicts between each other, because universities still getting the financial support from the US and from China. And in university place, I will not have intention to support one of the sides, because I will not get support from the second side, because if I will support one of the sides, because financial supporting is the best important for me, and so on. Second, the university staff are more considered like international. They're coming people from Middle Asia, from China, from the other African places, and so on. How exactly people will support that? Because they are not even interested in politics of China and US, because they are not from the China, they are not from US, they are foreign people, and so on, because that people are only interested in impact in science. They are only interested in how to get a favorite, how to get benefit from their own, and so on. By that, we don't see true reasons why a university should be interested in political opinion, and we don't know already in status quo how it can happen. At least opening government didn't provide just simple examples when university did that and will do that, etc., etc. Well, now few rebuttals about the Amazon, Google, and other things that there was being talked on Prime Minister. They tell us the Amazon, Google will get support from China and it will be fine. But it's very big lie. There are few reasons that that some kind of situations will never happen. Amazon and Google are very, very big companies that have very, very big benefits for US government because they pay billions of dollar taxes, because they pay a big amount of money, and they are already monopolies. Monopolies means that there are very, very little chance of that they will fail. It means that they already all time will have profit for US government and so on. In the Amazon and Google places, I will not get support from China because my US country will help me, because US already did with, if we remember, with Tesla, because when there were time 5 years ago when Tesla didn't have an income, when Tesla didn't have profit for US taxes, but US helped for them by less taxation, US helped for them by financing, because they US already know that that this company in the future will be a monopoly, that the US know that this company will benefit for them in their future, and they get less taxation for that for that researches, and by that we believe that the interests of US by taxation, by the future monopoly, by the future profits are more important in that sphere. And already Amazon and Google's companies, big companies, already their interests is crossed with the interests of United States. Okay. And some next thing about the I also want to talk about the student. Maybe CEO says that some students will come and etc. We believe that yes, it's kind of some possible that China will be interested to invade their students to make representation in US and so on. We believe that it's very good inside, because we still believe that when China's students will be like will be work in US countries, in US universities, they will become more probably they will become the more liberal, because they are already working in that atmosphere. They are looking for example, US TV, mass media, and so on. Even students China will come by financing and so on. We still believe that they're more liberal and will get Western Union interests and so on. By that, some kind of analysis. There are different other things that China can act to US, like for example mass media, like the One Belt One Road and the other things, but not universities in that debate, and that is very important. Okay. Two seconds. Oh, sorry. 2 seconds.
POI?
No, sorry. It's time. And then some kind of conclusion. In the clash of the humanity and the other things that been talked in the talk that the opening government, we win that clash because both opening tables agreed that the American universities are developed, they have more infrastructure and so on. By that, is the interest of US is that to invest to the already existed some in kind of states, the technologies, by not getting the profits for their own people, 2 billion of people. It's humanity clash. We don't see any reason why the US will be resisting to help for 2 billion of people living in China, because they're already same people as we are, and so on. Thank you very much. I'm very proud to oppose.
Awesome. I think the Deputy Leader of Opposition for what was an excellent speech, and I'll call on the Member of Government to extend for Gov case, please.
Am I audible? Okay. So 3, 2, 1. So 3 things in my speech. Firstly, I explain why it's legitimate to do so. Secondly, I'll explain how China benefits from that, apart from the impacts that opening government explained, and explain why it's bad. And thirdly, I'll explain how this affects the Chinese-US relations and how we'll have much more economic instabilities on our side of the house. So firstly, why it's legitimate? Firstly, we believe that the criteria for legitimacy is to minimize the evil regime and the crimes committed by the Chinese government. So what are those crimes? We believe that this is the corporate espionage, or this is this infringement on the intellectual property right? When you fund the research and the scientists will steal you the sensible data, or steal you the sensible patents, industrial patents from those universities. Notice that most of this is true because the US is extremely developed in the industrial patents, extremely developed in artificial intelligence and so other stuff, while China is just developing this industry, and it's they'll spend much more time to fund to reach those outcomes if they fund their own universities. So that's why they are funding and targeting US universities. No, I won't accept any POS. Sorry. So we believe that these are the crimes that Chinese government is conducting in the US territory. And notice that most of them, for most of these crimes, Chinese governments are not being held accountable for that. We believe that this is similar with the sanctions, right? When some country makes something illegal, or some kind of or threatens the national security, we believe that the government are putting the sanctions. For example, when Western countries put the sanctions to the Northern Korea that is developing their own nuclear weapon, we believe that this is the way that China strengthens the economy and targets the national security of other countries, and we believe that's why it's legitimate to do so. So, right? Why? Then what studies China is most likely to fund, right? Opening opposition says that it's likely to be medicine or to find some cure for people. We say they never prove why it's more likely to be true. We believe this is not true because given that the several strong medical universities within the China, and to keep the patent within the Chinese state and minimize the risk of being stolen by the US or the other countries. We believe China will never do that in the first place, fund those kind of stuff in other territories. So we believe that the impacts that opening opposition gave you on the making the lives of the individuals better is not true, or it's extremely marginal, right? We believe that this is most likely to be the kind of opening government talk. This might be some military equipments, or it might be industrial patents, or it might be artificial intelligence and technology, right? So, but notice that opening government never explains why Chinese government does have interest in investing investing in those kind of studies, and they never explain you why this is more likely to be true. We believe that China has two purposes here. Firstly, to steal the intellectual property. Why this is true? Because lots of scientists funded by China were alleged to steal that sensible intellectual property. That is for two purposes. Firstly, to use that innovation for strengthening the autocratic regime within the China in order to control the lives of the people by using those technological patents and AI algorithms in order to strengthen the Chinese internet and Chinese control over the people. And secondly, to push scientists to strengthen the economy by creating economical beneficial stuff within the China. For example, they're stealing industrial patents that could minimize the I don't know, some kind of work within the factories and so other stuff. So we believe that this is the primary interest of China in doing so, right? Opening government tells you that China has that this is bad because the people will not go against China. We believe this is not the part of the debate, because there is no interest for China in order to invest in politics, international relations, and those kind of stuff, because there is no primary interest on that, and secondly, no benefit, or there is a marginal benefit from that. And we say that this is not the kind of stuff that they are funding. And secondly, they say that Chinese sponsor small universities, but notice that this is contradicts themselves, because if the first claim is true about that politicians cannot go against China, notice that most of the politicians are the graduates from the elite universities. So we believe the claims that opening government tells you contradicts themselves. We believe that this is not a small universities, but rather elite universities. Why? In order to poach top scientists and to reach the outcomes, to the best outcomes, you have to target the best universities like Yale, like Harvard, like Cambridge, and so on. So we believe that this is the we do not accept the claim of OG on that. So what is the impact on that, right? So two things. Firstly, they steal all of those data in order to make China stronger and to strengthen the autocratic regime. We believe that in and in itself it's bad, because a lot of people are being targeted because of the funding of the Chinese government. And secondly, we believe it will lead to the tensions between American and Chinese relations. Why it's true? Because notice that when China, given the anti-Chinese mood of Trump, we believe those kind of allegations that China is sponsoring a lot of US universities will create more tensions between them. Why? What it might be, right? So we believe that Trump, given the unexpected decisions that Trump could make, it could put more sanctions on China, or do some other economic stuff that will create the tension between these two countries. And believe the Chinese also attempt to respond to their actions. And so we believe on their side, on opposition sides, there is going to be a lot of tensions between that. Because this is true, because see, opening government says that lots of Yale is receiving billions of dollars. We will also say that all of those allegations that scientists are stealing the sensible data, and China committing corporate espionage strengthens this position. And we believe that on our side there will be less tensions on that. So please propose.
Yep, I thank the member of government for what was an excellent speech, and I'll call upon the member of opposition to extend for opposition case.
Am I audible? Okay. Just a few seconds, please. Okay. Three main things in my speech, and after that I will go to rebuttals. Firstly, why research quality will not be affected, contrary to what OG and CG has been claiming. Secondly, what is the importance of Chinese funding in US universities, how it is beneficial for education in general in the US, why is it a necessary funding source. Thirdly, and lastly, intellectual dialectic with China. How does this affect the intellectual dialectic with China? So to my first point, why research quality will not be affected, contrary to the main claim of the government side. So we know that the top universities have such very high research standards. There are so many checks and balances that exist in research for research quality. There is peer review. There are replication research systems. So which means that if you produce a research from one university, that other universities like Cambridge and Oxford and worldwide universities can check those research which you are producing. So you are unable to just become a propaganda machine in science, or like just make a claim that if you are trying to vindicate China from COVID conspiracy theory, there are still other universities which are there to check on that and call you out if you are whether you're telling the truth or you're lying on that. thirdly, there is it is not going to be a collective hysteria, as I mentioned that there are universities worldwide which will check this, and fourthly, if you become a propaganda machine, it becomes obvious in the academia. Universities would lose their reputation massively. So there is an disincentive in becoming such a propaganda machine, so which is so obvious that you are creating research which is favoring the sources which are funding you. So this analysis goes further than what OO mentioned, that they just mentioned that since there are other countries which also source the university, they are unlikely to make research which is propaganda machine. Rather, we give you much more detailed analysis. Uh, but also, what is important here is that top universities do not feed their students a certain ideology. They teach you how to question and criticize the current status quo. So you are not just being fed, you are not just accepting what your professor says you, but rather the professor and the university, the whole academic system teaches you how to question the status quo and how to question the norms which are prevalent in society, which and 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 your whole academic research is inclined towards finding something that is groundbreaking rather than conforming to conventional norms. And so do the universities make you complicit as a whole, as a collective? Okay, if we take them at their best, there are like some set of professors who might become complicit to China because they are receiving Chinese funding and because they are receiving research funding. But as a whole, as a it is impossible that there would be collective hysteria. That is why their whole point falls down. uh, Another sub point in this first point is that the OGs claim that they draw a causal link between Chinese research funding and China's domination worldwide. This is such a weak link, and it is obvious that there is no such causal link exists between these two things. Why? Because whatever technology and medicinal progress is made, it usually benefits the entire planet. So if Chinese phones are becoming cheaper, then it is benefiting the entire planet. If there is medicine, if the research funding brings about a cure for cancer, it helps the entire world. Technological and medicinal progress, once discovered, it benefits the entire planet. And even if they don't and let's say if you bring this policy and you don't fund research, and China doesn't fund research anymore, so they can still buy the patents and algorithms which will with their billions of dollars, so they can still have their domination. If we take OG at their best, that this is giving them domination, they can still buy this kind of technology and algorithms and all those. They can still buy this and have their domination just as it is in the status quo. Second main point is that uh, in my speech is that why US universities need this funding, because there have been constant funding cuts in education systems. So there is a reliance on philanthropy from outside. Less fund. So if you cut this link or this source of money, it means there is less funding, which means poor research quality. Contrary to what they say, that research quality will become better. No, it with less funding, research quality falls down. Billions of dollars are being pumped in from Chinese government. It is helping overall educational system. It is making it stronger, and it benefits researchers. It keeps the prices stable. Because these prices remain stable, more students can afford education. People from deprived socio-economical backgrounds can afford education. Before going further, I will take OG POI.
Okay, so opening opposition's framing screw you over is, oh, if US always can save you from any kind of and compensate with everything like they did with Tesla, they can probably do that and compensate any kind of Chinese money in the first place. Second thing, Chinese funding was actually created since
Okay. I don't need a speech. So just a PO. So if you are receiving funding from if you are receiving 1 billion extra dollars, that means 1 billion extra dollars worth of funding. That is a marginal difference which cannot just be neglected in this debate. Okay, as you already characterized, $1 billion is a lot. Thank you. So it keeps the prices stable for students. A lot of students from socioeconomic deprived backgrounds can afford education because of this. So educational quality overall improves. Third important point is intellectual dialectic with China. There are more Chinese students benefiting from liberal Western education. So because of this, what happens is we are not saying that there will be an overnight Chinese revolution, but rather these kind of students will learn a psyche of questioning and critique, and as time progresses, there will be more and more students who can understand how the world actually works, rather than just being fed with Chinese propaganda. So it keeps the link between China and US alive. There is more intellectual dialectic, which so you have Chinese scholars questioning the communist government, and then you have also have students in the US who are countering the US conspiracy theories about China. So there is this is an important benefit which research funding keeps alive. If we take OG's and CG's characterization that Chinese research funding actually has an effect on on the universities, and it has a difference. So and then the CG claims are counterintuitive, something that is very counterintuitive. They say that openly anti-Chinese law, it further worse. So we say that an openly anti-Chinese law will further worsen the geopolitical relation, which is clearly counterintuitive. What CG claims. Thank you.
Awesome. I think the speaker before was an excellent speech, and I'll call upon GovWhip to close the case for side government. Here.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
So thank you for the speech. That several things that told us closing up. That's one of the problem is that no more money for research in these universities, because they have no money for the research comparative for top universities like Stanford or another universities. But it's not true. Why? Two reasons. Because government can support some universities if they show results in researching. And the second thing, these universities also can earn their own money, own profit. The third thing, we think it's not good, even if they got money from China, but they can be they will be under the pressure of government, because if government sees that China support these universities, or any party of USA do not like China, that we see that in case of Huawei, that America ban Huawei and put sanctions to Huawei. And second thing, America also grow up taxes for factories which has for companies which have companies in China. Also, in this case, these universities can suffer from the government. Government can cut their finances from the government side. So also in world of oppositions, these universities cannot get financial support from the government, because government do not like China and China's money. They said about medical innovations, but it's not true. There was proofing from my partner that China is still investing for medical for their own universities, local universities. Second thing, China also do not want that U.S. universities, US will the better medicine than China. So what we say in these debates, we say several things. That's a very important thing in these games. We are we explain it argument about legitimacy in these games more detailed, because in the status quo, China still the intellectual property, and we see in case of funding, China can make exchange of professors, and Chinese professors will be engage as they will engage with other professors. So American professors also will be dependent for Chinese money, because after that funding, wages and salary or other for China's money, and after that these local professors and the exchanges professors will still intellectual properties and help to China. It's for example, with face recognition or artificial intellectual intelligence, and we think these innovations will help to do stronger the Chinese regime. We think it's extremely important thing in these games to minimize evil of regime. So we think in our case, China cannot get these innovations because they have no influence for
We can't hear you.
So the process for this is like, I will pause the timer until he comes back online. Because I've got a second timer here. He's allowed a few seconds if he can get back quickly.
How much time he has left?
Like less than a minute.
Okay.
So basically, he can take it in PY. God, okay.
Yeah. Could you just message him like directly if you have any way to contact him directly?
I mean, if he will not appear, I can take over and finish the speech. So can you wait for like 15, 30 seconds? You are muted, I am sorry.
Yeah, I can wait for another 30 seconds because it's 2 minutes time that he's allowed, but you will not be able to take over the speech for him.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Oh, I have 1 minute, right? Okay, thank you. The last thing I said that the CG said about sanctions from the U.S. government to these universities, and they can stop the financial support to these universities. Why this is possible? Because in the status quo, U.S. government is putting the sanctions to the China with with Uyghur with that problem of rights, Uyghur autonomy, and it's possible because Trump want to use any instruments any against China. We think we win these debates because we do that first thing, that we are detailed that why this motion is minimize evil regime of China, and without these fundings, China cannot get this power because universities and professors and the potential of stealing this intellectual properties are unique benefits for China from universities. And the second thing is it's not good for universities because there will be harm for them. Thank you.
I thank you, GovWhip, for what was an excellent speech, and I call upon Opposition Whip to close the debate and the in-runs as a whole, please. Yeah, can wait just a few seconds.
Am I audible? Oh, wait a second, please. You ready? Mr. Speaker, we believe that in a world in which research capacity is excluded and the development of science is frowned upon, and any sort of such contribution is just politicized by the fact that it is just these fundings come from China, we oppose that world in which the whole government case stands for, right? So before I go on into true argument essentially two arguments that me and my teammate provided. First, basically about how these intellectual capacity and intellectual world can get way more benefit from existing fundings. And secondly, and what does it translate? What does this transformation in finding really means in the wider society, right? I mean, before we go on, just quick observation what we have seen in the whole case, right? In the whole top hots. I mean, Mr. Speaker, note that two arguments that the whole OG brings. First, about the quality argument, right? I mean, the quality of research. We believe in a world, I mean, let's just, to make a clear point of to look at their points, we need to understand what are those research fundings are. I mean, necessarily, right? We are specifically talking about research capacities that are mostly, yes, Chinese interests, like prioritize more of a Chinese interest. I mean, we are talking about research capacities that are basically focused on medical issues, basically focused on improving infrastructure and business, which actually, yes, we agree that which portrays like business development, which portrays like development of the wider society, right? We believe that these things, like in essence, doesn't really, they don't really prove to us why these, why having more money, but why professors being able to go out and make some project management, like research products, and can learn and tap into like research on cancer, research on wider things, like is necessarily downfalls the quality, right? I mean, me and my teammate have explained it in detail. And secondly, what they whole government case actually bring both government teams actually bring is the liberal argument, liberalistic argument, right? This is bashingly false statement, because in vast majority of the case, we are talking about liberal universities which has robust critical thinking, which have had its own ground, like with prominent professors, with prominent research barriers with a huge checks and balances that me and my teammate is claiming, right? We believe that in vast majority of cases, I mean, when these fundings are accepted, or they're accepted on a term and a transaction, which these, I mean, OG, Prime Minister actually in the first case, I mean, she actually mentioned that, right? I mean, they accept that these fundings will be directly correlated to with a certain project. I mean certain project research oriented, right? We believe it doesn't actually extend to, like, I mean, I don't actually see any correlation. Harvard student like studying in Harvard and trying to learn, like, tap into like cancer, being, I mean, thinking about thinking about socialism and like glorifying that. I mean, I don't really see that, right? I mean, and what I see, yes, in reality that we see that Chinese interests, like in vast majority of the case, I mean, we actually whole debate we miss about the whole point that these fundings are from China, but this is not necessarily from the Chinese government. So I mean, vast majority of the cases we are talking about thousands, if not millions, of companies that are funding these huge research capacity building universities, right? I mean. So going further on to our what we have heard about the patent laws, we think that AI on controlling like Chinese control, right? We think, like, Mr. Speaker, note that their whole case is rather based on that students, I mean, and the China giving more funding for cancer or for more enhancement of business infrastructure is more likely to bring like to bring, I don't know, like any cheating on the patent laws. We believe that's untrue to an extent which these transactions clearly states, I mean, clearly actually goes around these laws, right? I mean, going on to our argument, our side of the arguments and why we are going to win this debate. I mean, panel, we have shown you two things essentially. First, we have shown you why research capacity is more likely to be developed. Before I go on, please, any QI. OG, please. OG?
Okay, awesome. You have some things like patents, the most simple thing ever. You can actually block sharing any kind of research in the first place when you are paying for it. Why a pragmatic
No, we don't accept that premise. We simply refuse that premise because in vast majority of the cases, like Harvard, so like when you are actually studying in Harvard, when you're actually studying in Ivy League or Cornell or these universities, you are more likely to be actually, I mean, these universities accept the fact that these certain research products will be based on some certain actions, will have carry these some certain results, right? I mean, if we actually analyze like universities, I mean, what are those universities? I think we all agree on the fact that these universities are more focused on claiming to be the top. I mean, these universities want best students. They want their students to think critically. They want their students fund an open, groundbreaking research. They obviously do not want any sort of like, I mean, any infringement of laws, right? I mean, we believe that in vast majority of the cases, these universities like Cornell or these universities like Yale is less likely to engage in that sort of investment that is illegal, right? I mean, we believe that that's horrible, and that the whole thing, I mean, it's actually unproven. And we also believe that what does this actually mean, right? And first, what me and my teammate have actually, I mean, on the comparative, when we actually show to you that these, even if this is not like top university, like these universities which are trying it on its ground, which wants to be claimed the top. These universities, which exist on the status in the status quo, are more likely to receive funding. I mean, because these professors who are paid less, who would like to shine, who also would like to make a groundbreaking research, they have more incentives go into those. And especially this, what does it say for those people and students who study in these places, are that these students have actually incentive to make a good performance throughout these research fundings. And I mean, because in most cases, it is in their best interest. We believe it's abhorrent to exclude the research capacity and deprive people of their capacity to research and study and learn. We are proud to oppose. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I thank Opposition Whip for was an excellent speech, and I thank everyone for what was an excellent debate. We are going to jump out of this room to judge. Stay here, please. Do not leave this room. Yep. See you in 20 minutes. No, actually, you just leave this room.
This round is silent, right?
Yeah, it's closed round. Actually, yeah, you guys can just leave this room. Cool.
Thanks, yeah.
Sorry, is this a closed round or?
So thank you for everyone for the debate.
So we don't get an OA, right?